Emma had spent most of her life believing that fairy tales only existed in books. She worked as a seamstress in a quiet town, stitching elegant gowns for wealthy families while dreaming of a life beyond her tiny apartment. Every evening, she watched the grand carriages pass by her window, carrying people to glittering parties and luxurious celebrations that she could only imagine. One rainy afternoon, an elderly woman entered Emma's small shop carrying a beautiful piece of velvet fabric. She asked Emma to repair an old evening gown that had clearly seen many memorable occasions. Emma carefully worked on every stitch, treating the dress as if it were a priceless treasure. When she finished, the elderly woman smiled warmly. "You have gifted this dress a second life," she said. "Kindness deserves to be rewarded." Before leaving, the woman handed Emma a sealed envelope decorated with a golden wax seal. Emma was confused. She had never received such an elegant letter before. That evening, she carefully opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation to the Royal Charity Ball, the most prestigious event of the year. Nobles, artists, business leaders, and members of the royal family would all attend. Emma stared at the invitation in disbelief. There had to be some mistake. Someone like her didn't belong in a palace ballroom. She almost threw the invitation away, convinced it had been delivered to the wrong person. But the elegant handwriting clearly read, "Miss Emma Carter." Her heart raced. She wanted to go, yet fear whispered that she would only embarrass herself. For days she struggled with the decision. Her friends encouraged her to attend, reminding her that opportunities like this came only once in a lifetime. Finally, Emma decided she would go, not to impress anyone, but to experience a world she had only dreamed about. She spent every spare hour creating her own gown. Using leftover pieces of silk, lace, and pearls she had saved over the years, she designed a breathtaking blue dress that reflected moonlight like shimmering water. Every stitch carried hope, courage, and a quiet belief that perhaps her life could change. When the evening of the ball finally arrived, Emma stood before the grand palace gates. Crystal chandeliers glowed through the tall windows, music floated into the cool night air, and elegant guests stepped gracefully across the marble entrance. Taking a deep breath, Emma walked inside. She had no idea that before the night ended, one unexpected dance would change her destiny forever. Part 2. The Dance That Changed Everything. The grand ballroom shimmered beneath magnificent crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off polished marble floors like stars scattered across the night sky. Elegant guests laughed softly as a live orchestra filled the room with beautiful waltz music. Emma admired the breathtaking surroundings but couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong among the wealthy nobles and distinguished guests. She quietly made her way to a corner of the ballroom, hoping to enjoy the evening unnoticed. Yet her graceful blue gown and natural elegance attracted curious glances. Some guests smiled kindly, while others whispered, wondering who the mysterious young woman was. Across the room stood Prince Alexander. Although admired for his charm and kindness, he had grown weary of formal gatherings where every conversation felt rehearsed. His parents hoped he would find a suitable bride among the kingdom's noble families, but Alexander longed to meet someone genuine, someone who saw him as a person rather than a prince. As the orchestra began a slow, enchanting waltz, Alexander's eyes met Emma's from across the ballroom. There was something calm and sincere in her expression that immediately caught his attention. Without hesitation, he walked through the crowd toward her. Emma lowered her eyes, certain he must be approaching someone else. But he stopped directly in front of her and offered a warm smile. "May I have this dance?" he asked politely. Emma's heart pounded. She had never danced in a royal ballroom, let alone with the prince himself. For a moment, she considered refusing, afraid she would make a mistake. But Alexander's gentle smile reassured her. "I would be honored," she replied softly. As they stepped onto the dance floor, the music carried them gracefully across the room. Emma quickly forgot her nervousness. Alexander wasn't interested in titles or wealth. Instead, he asked about her life, her work, and her dreams. She spoke honestly about being a seamstress and how she believed every dress she created carried a small piece of someone's story. Alexander listened with genuine admiration. "That's a beautiful way to see the world," he said. Not many people notice the stories hidden behind simple things. For the first time in years, Alexander felt completely at ease. Emma wasn't trying to impress him. She laughed naturally, spoke with kindness, and treated him like any ordinary man. The guests watched in surprise as the prince spent the entire dance with the mysterious young woman. Whispered rumors spread across the ballroom, but neither Emma nor Alexander paid any attention. When the music finally ended, applause echoed through the hall. Alexander smiled warmly. "I hope this won't be our last dance," he said. Emma smiled back, her eyes shining with quiet happiness. "Neither do I." At that moment, neither of them realized that one simple dance had already begun to change both of their lives forever. Part 3. A Love Worth Fighting For. The days after the royal ball passed quickly, but neither Emma nor Prince Alexander could forget their magical evening together. Alexander found himself thinking about her gentle smile and honest heart during every royal meeting. Emma returned to her small sewing shop, trying to focus on her work, yet memories of their dance filled her thoughts. A week later, a royal carriage stopped outside Emma's shop. The entire street fell silent as the palace messenger stepped out and handed her a handwritten invitation from Prince Alexander. He wished to see her again. Their meetings became more frequent. Sometimes they walked through the palace gardens, where they talked for hours about their dreams and hopes. Other times, Alexander visited Emma's workshop, fascinated by the care she poured into every dress she created. Together they laughed, shared stories, and discovered that despite living in different worlds, their hearts understood each other perfectly. But not everyone welcomed their growing friendship. Many members of the royal court believed a future king should marry a noblewoman from a powerful family. They whispered that Emma was only a common seamstress and could never become a princess. Some even tried to convince Alexander that his feelings would damage the royal family's reputation. Emma overheard these cruel remarks during one of her visits to the palace. Though she tried to remain strong, the words wounded her deeply. That evening, she wrote Alexander a letter explaining that perhaps it would be better if they never met again. She loved him too much to become the reason for conflict within his family. When Alexander read the letter, he immediately rode to Emma's home. She opened the door with tears in her eyes. "I can't let you sacrifice your happiness because of me," she whispered. Alexander gently took her hands. "No title, tradition, or expectation is more important than finding someone who truly understands my heart," he said. "You never loved me because I was a prince. You loved me because I was simply Alexander. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." Emma struggled to hold back her tears. "But your family, your kingdom." "My kingdom deserves a king who leads with honesty," Alexander replied. "And my heart has already chosen its queen." A few days later, during a grand royal celebration, Alexander stood before the royal court. The nobles and the citizens gathered outside the palace. With courage in his voice, he announced that he intended to marry Emma. For a moment, the crowd stood in complete silence. Then an elderly queen smiled proudly, followed by applause from the people. Soon the cheers grew louder than anyone had imagined. The citizens admired Emma's kindness far more than her social status, and they celebrated a love built on respect, honesty, and compassion. Months later, the palace hosted another magnificent ball. This time, Emma entered not as an unknown guest, but as Alexander's fiancée. As they shared their first dance together, they both remembered the night when a single invitation, and one unforgettable dance, had changed everything. Their story became a timeless reminder that true love is never measured by wealth or status, but by the courage to choose each other against all odds.